The Nelson Mandela Foundation, custodians of the late former statesman's legacy, will be hosting a series of TED Talks under the banner Uniting for a Sustainable World. And we'll talk about it more now with the head of Mandela Day at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Gushwell Brooks. But we also have former Miss South Africa, who's also a mental health activist, Shudufhadzo Musida, join us via Zoom. So to the pair of you, thank you so much for your time this morning. Sometimes I feel like maybe we should listen to the soundtrack of our democracy every morning when we wake up, just to remind ourselves, you know, where we are. And I know that there's some discussion online, I'm sure both of you know, around DSTEM and its inclusion or not. But whatever your persuasion is, to be connected to that concept of our duty to this country on the back of the massive sacrifice that in this moment we're acknowledging. Gushwell, I want to kick off with you. I don't know if you've been watching, I know you've been watching Newzroom Afrika since the morning, hopefully, but we've had our crossings to our reporters in various locations where South Africans have come out to do their 67 minutes in honor of Madiba's legacy and in his memory. It's been 10 years since his passing. It is his birthday. This happened on his birthday. Massive historic moment, opening of Parliament as well. When you see what South Africans are doing to animate the legacy of Madiba, what do you feel?
Morning, Iman, and morning to everyone watching at the moment and probably out there busy doing good in Madiba's name. I think it's, you know, if you look at it, it's a global event. It's not just us as South Africans. Obviously, we're the custodians. You know, Madiba belonged to us ultimately, both to the country as well as to the continent. But the thing that stands out for me is that it's a global activation. People are doing so much, from big business to government to the international community, civil society to ordinary people. You know, within our communities, giving back and reaching out to the foundation, saying, what is it that I can do on the day? How can I join you guys? What is it that I should do on the day? That for me is absolutely stunning.
And I think it's wonderful, even if some people only do it on this day, or people who have, you know, a habit of doing good and being charitable in the name of, you know, people who are less privileged in our society. It's a wonderful opportunity to be connected to a sense of community activism. Shudu, we all saw you looking resplendent, darling, there at the Durban July. And I know that you were there also promoting awareness around HIV. But you're also very connected to the memory and some of the work and activism around Mandela Day. Talk to us about what it means to you. And what your message is to South Africans, and as Gushwell is telling us, the rest of the global citizens towards commemorating this moment.
Hello, Iman, and hello, everyone. The way I'm connected to this day is, firstly, it's my birthday today. So I've always grown up with a sense of service in me. Every single Mandela Day, I've always understood the greater responsibility that we have as a human race. And yes, like you said, people will use these days to do their 67 minutes. But I think us as Africans, we are grounded on Ubuntu. You know, I am because you are, and vice versa. And I think on this day, the message that I have to South Africans is that it shouldn't end on Mandela Day. We should live our lives trying to be a community, instilling a sense of community and helping the rest of the people around us. I used to grow up with the sentiment that izandla ziyagezana, but not in the sense of money, but in the sense of Ubuntu. And as South Africans on this day, I have so much pride in me because of the opportunities that we have now because of the sacrifices. But I think it's all our collective responsibility to now pay it forward and make sure that the legacy doesn't just stop here and it doesn't get commemorated only on Mandela Day. So this is an incredible day. I am here speaking on SDG 3, which is health and well-being of all individuals. So on this day, I just implore South Africans and people globally to just always pay it forward and serve one another as a global community.
Talking about those SDG goals, it forms the marquee for what this event really is insofar as what the foundation is doing for Mandela Day. So Gushwell, just talk to us about that, the TED Talks that have been planned and why you've chosen to use this format and platform as a way of connecting Madiba's values to the very real work of change that's needed in our communities.
It's actually an interesting journey, Iman. Last year, we, along with the United Nations on Mandela Day, exactly a year ago, we launched the Book of Quotes by Madiba. So, of course, at the time when Nelson Mandela was talking about, you know, where the quotes are sourced from, he wasn't necessarily making direct reference to the Sustainable Development Goals because they hadn't existed yet. But I think that the amazing thing is how what Madiba said many, many years ago resonate today with what we want to achieve in 2030, rather. So that's where that conversation really started. But then just moving ahead, I think at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and both you and Shudu touched on it, is the fact that ultimately this is not stuff that we can only do and talk about on this day. There are people that have been doing this type of work on a day-to-day basis, and the 18th of July is really an opportunity for us to showcase that, to showcase the long-term and sustainable work that's being done. And the Sustainable Development Goals ultimately point to sustainable goals that we need to reach for the betterment of humanity, the planet, as well as the future generations to come. So ultimately for us as the Nelson Mandela Foundation, we're saying that this is the perfect day for us to talk about this seriously and then to commit everyone to action to make this a reality. So
talk to us very quickly about the partnership, and I believe that people can still access the talks. Are they being streamed or no? How do other South Africans get connected with the series of talks? I know you've got a number of speakers. You're partnering with the United Nations. You've also partnered with the Gordon Institute for Business in South Africa, a number of different stakeholders. How's it happening?
Yeah, so look, it is a TEDx format, so with in collaboration with TEDx Johannesburg. Tickets were on sale. It is being held at Gibbs. And it is being streamed, but it's being streamed to specific audiences, obviously with similar thought, same WhatsApp group, for lack of a better term. But it being a series of TEDx talks, the great thing is that people will be able to access this after the fact as well, and to live on. I think that goes back to the issue of sustainability, that this is not just a once-off event and just in a closed room, but this is really to mobilize long-term action.
Yeah. Shudu, when we again, and I think it's so important, as you say, a moment like this is a reminder of things we can do, even if we don't do it for the rest of the days of the year. And we're reminded of all the amazing things that Madiba did in his life and ways that he continues to inspire South Africans and South Africa on another democratic milestone, the opening of Parliament, the 7th administration, which looks very different to the fortunes that the ANC, for example, and the party of Madiba has enjoyed over the last many years. But a lot of people say, how do I have time to do this when I myself am in need? How can I be an activist for change? How can I make a difference where I am when I'm facing very, very real existential threats? I can't feed my family. I can't go to work. Life and the future is looking bleak for me. I cannot subsist on platitudes.
I think activism is exactly that, speaking out and making sure that your voice is heard. So I grew up in a small village in South Africa, and I was on social grant, and so was my grandmother. But my grandmother would use her social grant to at least make sure that the girl who lived next door to us had school shoes. This is someone using social grant to make a change. Sometimes we think change needs to be this big, grand thing, but to be honest, it starts in the smallest ways. And I know that we live in a society where there's a lot of people that do not have. It's an incredibly unequal society. But I think change starts with the small things. And again, it starts with the conversations that we're having right now around health, around change, around giving, around community. Sometimes your voice is all that matters, and it's all that you can give, and that's enough. So I think on this day, more than anything, it's just showing how sometimes even when you can't do it every single day, it's how you pay it forward in the smallest ways. And in my opinion, sometimes making another person feel seen, making them realize that they're not alone, can go a long way into instilling change for the future.
Shudu, I think that's so important. And perhaps to close then, Gushwell, with you, is what Shudu is talking about and what there is perhaps the opportunity for even the smallest among us to do is to demonstrate a charity of spirit.
Indeed, and the amazing thing for me, Iman, is not necessarily just the big gestures being made by big organizations. It goes back to those very straightforward acts that Shudu just made mention of. And I think it's imperative. We're at a stage where this is not a luxury to have anymore. This is not, and I know that the COVID-19, the pandemic, made us very parochial. People lost jobs, people lost economic opportunities, and it's very difficult then to say I'm going to extend my generosity to the next person. But I think if there's one thing that's blatantly obvious to us as a species, is that if we do not care more for each other, we're putting ourselves at risk. And therefore, days like today is not something that should be happening in isolation. It should be continued on a sustainable basis. Today really showcases that opportunity of getting together and displaying that solidarity.
Amazing. Well, I'm certainly moved. Gushwell Brooks is the head of Mandela Day at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and Shudufhadzo Musida, former Miss South Africa, still very prolific in her community work and activism. Thank you to both of you for stopping by the program. Really do appreciate your time. And good luck with the rest of the activities. We'll be watching closely, Gushwell. Hopefully we speak. By the way, at the Mandela Lecture, what's happening this year?
Can't say. No teasers, yeah.
Oh, always hoping for a little scoop under the table.